Hey, Corky here, coming to you on a Saturday. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the guitar and social music, and this particular one has to do with the unsung heroes. There's a bit of controversy right now about the George Harrison 50-year anniversary of the album All Things Must Pass, because there is at least one studio musician who is angry because they feel like they've been left out of the credits and so forth. And this called to mind the recent release of, or semi recent releases of the Wrecking Crew documentary, Standing in the Shadows of Motown, the Funk Brothers, and then Muscle Shoals. And these documentaries are focusing on those unsung heroes who were the studio musicians and the background musicians and singers of the great hits in popular music. This brings about discussion concerning what I've already talked about on here. That is, that music should be used to support people. Musicians should not be looking to get other people to support them, although they need it desperately. The pandemic has focused a bit on this because bands, their gigs are for the most part closed. They've had to find creative ways to do music, and if this is true of the lead singers and the lead artists, you know that it's got to be also true for the studio musicians, the backup bands, and so forth. Well, in my thoughts on social music, I have pointed out, especially to people in the church who are musicians, there's a lot of them, who can't seem to get a break to, be productive in their music projects. And the stage is, it's a place that a lot of people are striving to get up on to perform. I will restate that a performer is someone who plays probably one instrument and then needs other people to back him up. A musician is someone who probably plays more than one instrument and is more concerned with what the song needs. And so I'm calling for there to be a new generation of true musicians like the Swampers, like the Funk Brothers, like the Wrecking Crew, people who don't necessarily have to have their name on an album, although we're glad that now, since Marvin Gaye's What's Going On album, that artists are tending to list the studio musicians in the credits on the CD or whatever. And with this digital age, with no more album covers and inserts, people are just getting this music digitally, and they don't have the list of artists that contribute. So that's not happening either. But the idea is that if you're going to be a true musician, that you're looking to support others, not looking for people to support yourself, not looking for a break. Several years ago, and I was reminded of this man from a TV show I was watching last night. I had a number of friends in Memphis, Tennessee, who did not attend church, who were musicians, most of them blues rock musicians, so forth. And there was a young man I met in the ministry who had a desire to start a church in Memphis, and he was raised in Memphis, so he felt like he'd be a good candidate to be a founding pastor of a fledgling congregation. And so I was able to gather about 50 names for him, of people that he could contact to start this church in Memphis. And I took him out to lunch and told him about that. And then he said, well, how much am I going to get paid? And I said, you're not going to get paid anything. I said, you need to go sleep on your mama's couch and do this. And he was like really taken back by it, that this was not an opportunity that had been offered him. Well, he needed to think more about service and serving others. We never dreamed, we needed it, but we never dreamed that anyone would pay us a salary to go somewhere and plant a church. And we planted a couple and helped plant a bunch of others in cities. But we always, went and got a job. Or actually in New England, we were paid a salary. But that was their decision, not mine. I didn't ask for that. And so we're wanting to be gracious about the way that we do music and find ways to express music in support of other people. And to do this, you might have to go outside the church to the electric church, what Jimi Hendrix called the electric church. There was a scores of events and venues outside of church buildings, outside of nightclubs, and there's so many opportunities to share the gift of music. And, I myself directed, 7 bull riding camps. I'm not even a bull rider. I don't even ride a horse. But I made friends with the professional bull riders of PBR. You might watch them on Saturday night, bull riders, professional worldwide champions. I made friends with them, and I would have a world champion come to the Indian reservation and hold a bull riding clinic at no charge to Native American youth. And, I did 7 of these things. Did 3 in Tennessee, 4 in South Dakota. And I have no idea of anything about livestock. I have no knowledge of it. It was just a service that needed to be provided. And there's a lot of things like that in the world. If you just step up and say, I'm willing to do it, there's people who are willing to pay for it. And I didn't get paid for doing any of those things. I was invited to go to the Rosebud Reservation and be an artist in residence at a youth center for the Sachangu Lakota people. And I did that and taught guitar and went over to the St. Francis School and taught guitar, and I was blessed to be able to do it, and they paid me a little bit. When I did my taxes, the woman saw what I got and everything, and she was like, well, you're not going to get rich. And I thought, well, this is what I do, And especially when you get retirement age and you can draw a Social Security check if you work jobs like I did for, good grief, 40 years, 50 years, I don't know. Putting into Social Security, you get that little bit of income, then you can do some things. And once your kids get grown, you can do things that you would have been able to do in your 20s. And so there's a mentality of looking for ways to bring joy into people's lives. And meeting at the point, there's all these songs that people have interest in, and you need to raise those up rather than constantly be, striving to expose your creative songs and things like that to others. Do something they know, like back in the rock world, it was always like, play Free Bird, and you hated that. You hated to hear that because that's what everybody was screaming for, and you might not like the song. You might want to share a song you wrote, but they haven't heard that, and they didn't come over there to, expand their mind. They came over there to have a good time and to hear that song. And so, what I'm looking for, if I go to a hospital to play, as I did in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, they put me in a big teaching hospital in a lobby, a giant lobby with a beautiful grand piano and all that. And I just was to sit there in the corner and play guitar all day. And I did that. And when I played songs that were popular, familiar to the people, I got responses. If I started playing something I wrote, nobody recognized it. So it's a mentality, I often say give the people what they want. I mostly say that about my granddaughter, but there's a little bit of validity to that for you to provide a needed service. One of my points of contention is that churches go into nursing homes every week. The one that I did, I have to do arithmetic. I despise arithmetic. About 50 weeks a year for 8 years, 400 programs at a nursing home in Tennessee. And out of 100 volunteers who came in on a weekly basis, I was the only ordained minister, but I was the only one that didn't primarily do gospel music. I did rockabilly primarily because Elvis fans are in nursing homes now. And why do we think that when we go in there that we've got to play these hymns that are ancient, that are beautiful? I know you like the lyrics to them and everything, but just try doing The Wonder of You by Elvis Presley in a nursing home and see what kind of response you get. You're going to get a big response because the people know what they want. And we need to be willing to serve in ways where we can provide these services for people. Now I want to talk about one more thing before I get off here, and that is all this talk that I'm doing about music in the brain and social music is coming in from a different door. The same old accesses to music that people have in the public have been worn out. Like, there's such a thing as a portal. And, the old legends say that, demons hang out at door portals or doorways. And I think that's true of music performance, the same old thing over and over, and people either get tired of it or it doesn't touch them. One thing that I did, there was a woman in the nursing home who never came out of her room to go to any events, not to bingo, not to dinners, nothing. She wants to stay in the room all the time. And I brought my trio in, which was intellectually disabled adults. I had a trio, and they sang old-time music. They sung some gospel, they did. Maybe a third of their songs were gospel. But they sung a lot of other things too. And so when I started going in there and the clients would set up the PA and we would go to sing and I'd be backing them up on guitar, that woman would bust out of her room and come down there to hear it. And when asked why that was the only thing she would come out of her room for, she said, I need to go down there and help those children. Well, they weren't children. They were in their 30s. But for some reason, people who have a pitiful mindset think that people with disabilities, even adults, are children because they think they've got a mind of like a child. And so they look down on them. But this worked because this woman would come out to help the children, and then the singers would get to sing to her. So it was more of a thing of she felt sorry for us, so she came out of her room, rather than what always happens in nursing homes where the church people feel sorry for the patients and they go over there. And nobody wants to hear you do any kind of presentation when you're pitying the people that are listening to you. You got to respect people. So this sounds like a rant, but this is social music. This is putting music in the place of the community where it belongs. And so I'm going to get off here now before I get too worked up, but y'all have a blessed day.